Hello, Garland Nixon here, and I think the only question we're answering now is how this defeat unwinds, not whether or not defeat occurs. Let's talk. Hello, Garland Nixon here, and let's talk about it's Sunday morning. We're going to talk about where we are in the Iran conflict. Ties all crooked here, for God's sake. What am I doing? Anyway, I think we're at a place now where any reasonable person, or as they say in the legal community, a reasonable and prudent man, right? Any reasonable person now who looked at this conflict understands that the United States is effectively, I love to use analogies, out on its feet. And what I mean is sometimes when a person gets struck, wham, right to the chin, boom, they kind of freeze for a second. You ever seen the videos where somebody gets punched or hit or whatever in a bar, whap, and you see the person's arms go limp. Sometimes their eyes go up in their head, but it doesn't matter. At that point, the person is still standing up. There is the appearance that they're conscious because their body is still in a vertical state. It is rapidly approaching a horizontal state. And so what you realize is this, the term we use is out on his feet, meaning the person is unconscious, but they are in the process of falling. They're in the process of what? Collapse. And everybody around it, when they see the punch, you see the puncher, you watch it in slow motion, you see the hit, wham, and you see the reaction or the lack thereof of the person. Well, it is a reaction to just lose consciousness, which means everything goes limp and they drop, boom, and they're out, right? But before it, what is it? Out on its feet. That now, in this context, what I mean is this: you've lost the war. All onlookers can see that you've lost the war. But in this instance, there is the appearance that you're still fighting, that you're still in, you're still vertical, right? Now, in this instance, you have to say the United States is a very, very powerful adversary for anyone. The United States can still deliver blows. Yes, it can still deliver blows. And there are people that are going to say, Garland, you're jumping the gun. You're way ahead of things. No. The United States has a lot of power, etc. But there are other factors that have to be taken into account here. When you watch a fight, you can see, in this instance, the difference between tactics and strategy. And what happens is this: it's just like a conversation. And any salesman, the salesperson, when I used to be in sales, what do they teach you about a conversation? Politicians, the good ones, know this, right? If you're explaining, you're losing. But what does that really mean? If somebody's asking, the person asking the questions is in charge of the conversation. And you'll see people who will respond with a question. Why? Because they don't want to lose the upper hand. They don't want to lose the high ground of the conversation. If somebody says, what are you doing here? And you start explaining, you're losing. Because they have established, you might have heard me talk about this, they've established that they have the authority to question you and you have to answer them. They've established a authoritative position, right? Hey, what are you doing here? Now, to regain in a conversational context, to regain that footing, if somebody, you'd have to respond with a question. What are you doing here? The correct answer, if you want to regain power, it would be, well, what gives you the authority to ask me that? Now you've asked them and they got to answer. You see what I'm saying? It's a matter of saying, and then they say, and even if they answer, if they say, I don't have to tell you, they're losing because you asked the question and they're answering, right? Now, why do I use that in the context of this conflict? It's quite simple. If you're explaining, you're losing has an application here for this reason. The one who's responding, that's all you're saying. If you're explaining, that means you're responding. The other person has the initiative in the conversation. I'm doing this, and your answer, you have to answer. No, somebody says, I like the conversation with the Iranian politician yesterday. Oh, I don't know. Could that be Mario Nawfal? I don't know. Whatever. But there's a lot going on. Good. Anyway, thanks a lot, everybody, for coming back. So the bottom line is, in this context, If you're explaining, you're losing. All that means, you can simplify that, kind of like reducing fractions, right? What you're really saying is this: the person who is responding to the other person's actions, right? The person who's asking the questions, the person who has the initiative is the person who has strategy. I'm in control in a broad sense. I'm executing a strategy. I'm going to force you to tell me what you're doing, and then if you don't like, then I'm going to throw you out, tell you have to leave. I'm going to give you orders. I'm going to do all these things while I have the initiative, right? The person who is responding is the person who is using tactics. I'm just responding. I got to respond to this person, right? They don't have a strategy. They don't even have tactics. Really, if you want the truth, they're just responding to this person's strategy. I'm going to do this. Then you respond to what I do. I'm going to punch you. You try to block the punch. That's why there are a lot of people who believe that, if you try to block a punch, you should be throwing a punch at the same time. Never just block a punch. You know what I mean? You block a punch, that fist comes up at the same time, right? It's the same, not block a punch. It's pow. I'm blocking your punch, which I can't accurately do it here, but in the suit and all that, but you get my point. That punch is coming in. I want to stop that punch. But if I stop the punch, another punch is coming. I want to stop that punch. Pop. And what I practice is I want them to both come up at the same time, right? I want the boom. So I'm not responding. I am at the same time that I'm executing a strategy. Now you got to try to block this punch or take this punch. I don't ever want to get in a position where I'm constantly blocking punch. I'm backing up, I'm running. No, I want to be, as they say, punch your way out of it. Somebody attacks you, punch your way out of it, right? So here's my point in this context. The US responds. Iran hits this, does this. They have a broad strategy, and the US is constantly responding to their strategy. But the beauty of their strategy is it also, and this is what it appears, that there is symmetrical responses. Asymmetric is what? Asymmetric means no symmetry, right? The lack of symmetry. Non-symmetrical. In other words, symmetry is things flow along evenly. This happens and then that happens. There's one here, there's one there, there's two there. That's symmetrical, right? Asymmetrical warfare is I do something you're not expecting. I attack in Kung Fu. It's like the crane, where they say the crane attacks, from unorthodox ways. A good fighter will fight in an unorthodox way, so you don't know what to expect, right? So my point being that Iran reserves the right for both symmetrical, which means I'm going to respond to something that you do, but I've already pre-planned that response. I've already game theoried this thing out. If you attack this, I'm going to do that. And so much so, right, that I will warn you ahead of time. So it's not even a sneak attack. I'm going to use my ability to execute symmetrical attacks. If you do this, I'll respond this way. And you can't do anything about it. I don't have to sneak you. You can't stop me. So here's what I'm going to tell you. You punch my banks, I punch your banks. You hit my oil facilities, I hit your oil facilities. You hit my electric plants, I hit your electric plants. Why can Iran do that? Because there's nothing we can do to stop them. Our air defense is collapsing. What little air defense we ever had, and I say we because I live in the United States, it really ain't me, but you get the picture. Some people say, Garland, why do you say we? Well, it works for the purpose of this. I'm living here, so I don't know if a nuke drops in DC, I'm going to get it too. So I might as well say we, right? But my point is, so Iran's symmetrical warfare is preordained. They have gamed out the possibilities that you can do, and they want to tell you, let me tell you what the possibilities are. You can do any of these things. When you do them, I'm doing them right back to you, and there's nothing you can do to stop me. That's number one. Number two, once that happens, once you hit something to theirs and they hit something to yours, once that happens a couple times, they don't have to tell you anymore. No longer now there is a pattern, and if I kick you in the knee, you're going to kick me in the knee. If I bite you in the hand, you're going to bite me. So there is the symmetry. Additionally, here's the other thing. This is not asymmetrical in a traditional manner, right? There was an infamous 2002, 2003, you can look it up, war game against Iran. And at that time, there was a general, you can look it up. His name was Von, two words, Riper, Riper. Look that up. Operation, I don't remember what it was called. Some of you might remember. But there was a war game with the US versus Iran. And Von Riper, what's the word I'm looking for? Notable, remarkable about that war game actually didn't occur. But Iran defeated in that war game. They put him in charge of Iran. He used asymmetrical tactics. But at that time, Iran didn't have the symmetrical power. They didn't have the traditional military power that they have now. He used asymmetrical tactics to attack the U.S. To preemptively attack the U.S. and defeat them in hours. He defeated them in no time flat, right? But he used asymmetrical ways to do it. But at that time, that was legitimate because in 2002 or 3 or whatever it was, Iran didn't have the traditional military power to defend themselves in a symmetric way. So they used asymmetrical, in other words, abnormal, different warfare. You hit me with a bat, I'm going to hit you with a bat. Well, so now you hit me with a bat, I'm going to run around behind you and poke you with a ice pick or something. I'm going to do something you weren't expecting. I'm going to trip you. I'm going to bite you. I'm going to do something you weren't expecting. Usually asymmetrical warfare also indicates weakness. Who uses terrorism? Countries that are weak. What is England doing? Britain doing against Russia? They're doing sneak attacks constantly. Asymmetrical. They're constantly doing. Why? Because they're so much weaker. What is NATO doing? It's so much weaker than Russia that it has to use sneak attacks. If it was as powerful as Russia, they could come right out and punch Russia in the face, but they're not. So that the use of asymmetrical tactics implies a level of weakness, a respect for your enemy's power over yours. Now, Iran has risen to a point where they don't really have to use it because they have equal power in their region. Let's not forget, if you're arguing that Iran isn't, that the U.S. is so much more powerful, in a broad international sense. Yeah, we got stuff all over the place. It's all over the place. At this point, the U.S. would really put the power they have in one region, they'd have to close every other base, take all military might that they have, 100% of it from everywhere, bring it all to the Persian Gulf, and then attack Iran. The problem with that is Iran has escalatory dominance in the Persian Gulf. You have no staging areas. Right? Staging areas in military is what? That's where you bring stuff in and you stage it, you put it out so you can fly in, attack, and come back. We don't have bases. We're flying out of England and India because our bases have all been flattened. We can't even park airplanes in the Persian Gulf region or anywhere in the Middle East region, anywhere close. As you saw probably recently, that there was an air base in Saudi Arabia where there was like 5 of these KC-135 Strato tankers. What happened to them? Iran found them. They located them. Let's use military terms. They were detected. They were targeted. They were eliminated. In today's war, what we have is the Iranians, and let's be honest, they got help from the Russians and the Chinese, right? So they have a capability of targeting that appears to be quite frank, at this point, their targeting capabilities is at least as good as the US's target capabilities. However, they have superior missile and drone capabilities. So if you have two groups fighting each other, but they have, let's say, equal targeting capabilities. Now, based on what we're seeing with what appears to be help from the Chinese and the Russians, it's even plausible to argue that the Iranians have equal, if not superior, targeting capabilities. But we can't really know that because the U.S. has a limited strike capability as they're running out of missiles. So we can't for sure know who has the best. But we know this: the U.S.'s targeting capabilities is not superior to the Iranians. And my guess, I don't know, my guess is that the Iranians or may just be the Iranians, could be the Chinese too, Russians, we don't know for sure. But let's just say the BRICS coalition in the Middle East has mapped it out. They've mapped out every U.S. asset, every computer, every barracks, everything in the Middle East. And a lot of these missiles are systematically destroying the U.S. capability, military and technological capabilities in the Middle East, number one. And number two, that their plan, as I see it, is to just keep destroying this stuff. Just keep destroying everything the U.S. has, bit by bit, that every day goes by, that they have assets that they're just targeting, taking out those assets every single day. So what does that mean? That means every day the U.S. gets weaker and weaker and weaker and weaker. Now their ability and their capacity to attack seaborne objects has created an environment where it's almost impossible for the U.S. Navy to get close enough really to do any damage. They're running for their lives. They got to stay 1,000 kilometers away. Man, how are you going to be in the fight if you're 1,000 kilometers away? You're not much in the fight. So what I'm saying is, what we're looking at is, I mean, that's a long, wordy way to say that the war is completely freaking lost. And it was lost very, very early. And it was lost based on not just on and this is the bad part for the US, not only based on the Straits of Hormuz, not only based on economic issues, but it appears to me that the planning for this war, that the strategy for this war, etc., that the US did or did not have, was highly flawed. And it doesn't surprise me for this reason, because this is what you get with ideologues. Ideologues act without thinking, which can be good if you're talking about Zen, can be bad if you're talking about planning a war, right? So what they've done is they've gone in here, and of course, okay, we had a plan. We're going to blast them. The war will end in 4 days. That apparently was the plan. But when the war didn't end in 5 days, it didn't end in 4 days, they didn't have a backup plan. This way may cause you, I dare say, to recall of the conflict in Ukraine, right? Where clearly, if you understand the conflict in Ukraine, based on what is said by the Biden administration, what you understand is this: the plan was never for a long war. They knew it was a possibility, but the plan was to get the war started, to execute a massive economic attack on Russia via sanctions, and then Russia would collapse, and then the U.S. would come in and take over. NATO would take over and take all of Ukraine's stuff. When that didn't work, the backup plan, such as it existed, the response, let's say, the tactic was, okay, fine, then we'll have Russia drag into this long-term war and it'll weaken Russia. They even said it, okay, we're going to weaken Russia. That a long-term, well, it didn't work. It did the opposite. It strengthened Russia. But they had a plan that wasn't a good one, and it was going to be a short plan, probably last week's. Didn't work. And then at that point, their strategy failed. So all they had now is tactics. Russia's going to do this, we'll do that. Russia's going to do this, we're going to do that. Oh, we're going to send these, we're going to send that. And the whole time, here's what's interesting. A lot of people looked at it and said, you know what? Why doesn't Russia respond? Why don't they throw some Oreshniks at France or Germany or Britain, etc.? But if they did that, they would then be put NATO in the driver's seat. Why? For this reason: if you're explaining, you're losing. If you are responding, right, you've gone outside of your strategy, and now you don't even have tactics. They throw a missile at you, you respond. They throw a drone at you, you respond. They try to kill Putin, you respond. Now they have the initiative. If you say, I got a strategy, and my strategy is to defeat the NATO military in Ukraine, no matter what they do, I'm sticking to my strategy. Right? I'm maintaining course and speed. I argue that the reason NATO hates President Putin the most is because he won't respond, because he maintains course and speed. That no matter what happens, it's like, nope, we're going to keep going, because eventually we'll outlast them. It's a war of attrition. We will exhaust our enemy. Hey, what's going on? What did Iran say? They learned from that. What they learned is this: the United States can't fight a war of attrition. You know, it's like a sporting game. Once somebody learns your weakness, you're done. Right? If you're a basketball player and somebody learns you can go right, but you can't go left, you're finished. They're going to cut off your right hand and you can't go left. right? If you're a football team and they play for American football, and they find out, well, they can pass the ball well, but they can't run. You're done. They're going to take the pass away from you. You can't run. When someone figures out your weakness, you're finished. Everybody's going to use that weakness to get a weakness against you. The United States does not have the industrial capacity to maintain a conflict long term. Anybody who fights them is going to fight them in a long-term conflict because that is their weakness. You're going right at their weakness. Okay. And so what's happening now, Iran is going right at our weakness. And we haven't even begun to get there yet. Here's what I mean. We're still discussing, I don't know, Cargill and, we're objectives, right? In a war, we're going to take this hill. You remember Vietnam, the U.S. with the Hamburger Hill? We're going to take hill, whatever number that hill is. We take the hill and we lose all these soldiers. And then once we took it, what? We got the hill, what now? Leave it. And then they come right back after we leave. Then we got to take it again, right? So that's an objective, but there's no strategy to objective. Why are we going to take that hill? Well, so we can show we take it from them. It doesn't meet a broader strategy. It just, we lose soldiers and we keep marking time, right? So here's my point. What you have to discuss right now, to me, if I'm the US, this is what I'm looking at. We get two big problems. Number one, and the Iranians know it, and you actually know it, and I actually know it. The United States has a limited amount of weaponry. This has been discussed ad nauseum, right? Prior to the conflict, we were even told online, yes, the U.S. Only has enough weaponry, offensive and defensive, to last, 3 to first they said 2 or 3 weeks, and then they moved it up to a month or whatever. And I'm sure, let's say it's 3 weeks, but I'm sure at this point they can go and rob Peter to pay Paul, as they say. They can go take all of their stuff from all around the world and permanently demilitarize themselves. We got to understand that's what it would be. But they go to all of their, and they have no choice. They have to. They will be exhausted in their regional supplies as it continues to get attacked. They will then have to go all around the world to other bases and get whatever they can. They've already started. Let's go to South Korea and get THAADs and BODs and SMODs and whatever the hell. They're getting everything they can. Let's take it all there. It doesn't it kind of remind you of NATO being demilitarized in Ukraine, where I used to use the analogy that Ukraine is a big garbage compactor, and NATO just keeps throwing their military gear in there, and Russia keeps smashing it to pieces and then saying, hey, the garbage compactor is empty, NATO, send some more stuff and fill it again. That's all that we've been doing. Well, that's what's happening again. The Middle East is a garbage compactor. For now that Russia has demilitarized NATO, right, as a whole, now the Iran conflict is demilitarizing specifically the United States. As I said, the desperation in getting all of our stuff out of South Korea, right? Our THAAD systems, or what it tells you, what this is desperation. That ain't the only place they're doing it. Everywhere around the world, the U.S. is now going around saying, what do we have? What do we have here? What do we have in South America? What do we have in Asia? What do we have? Why? Because we have no choice. They can't. The point is this: you're in a war right now. You can't plan for the wars in the future. You're losing a war right now. Get everything we got everywhere, bring it to the Middle East. And so what the Iranians are doing is they're chewing everything up. We got time, brother. Time is on our side, as the Rolling Stones said, right? So the U.S. is bringing stuff there. We got to get stuff from South Korea, wherever, everywhere. AFRICOM, send your stuff. You name it, everywhere. Send your stuff, and it will all be utilized. And let's just give a timeline. So originally, when they said we can do 2 or 3 weeks, what that meant was with the stuff we have in the region. Okay, now there's a giveaway, and that is this: people expose their weaknesses, right? If a person tries to act real tough, I'm the toughest guy in the world, that means they feel very weak, right? Tough people don't have a reason for bluff and bluster. They just walk around and mind their business. If somebody mess with them, they're going to break their neck. But a weak person has to keep you off. They got to pretend they're big. Look in the animal world. What do animals do when they're attacked? They puff themselves up to make themselves look bigger, right? It's a bluff, but it's the only bluff they got sometimes, right? So when Trump says we have unlimited supplies, what does that mean? That means it's a bluff. That means we don't have. Why would you bring that up? If you had unlimited, first of all, if you had unlimited supplies of information, of unlimited supplies of weaponry, you wouldn't tell your enemy that. You wouldn't tell them anything. Hey, how much weaponry you got? None of your business. You're my enemy. Sorry, that's classified information. Why would you come out and say it? Unless you didn't. And you needed to scare them off to make them think you did. Meanwhile, your generals are saying, dude, we got 2 more weeks. So if you're Iran right now, you've only just begun to fight. You haven't truly executed your strategy. You're just starting to. You start off by, we're going to clash with them. We're going to go toe to toe with them. But meanwhile, we're going to constantly, nonstop throw missiles at Israel. Nonstop, day and night missiles will be thrown at Israel. Right? We want the Zionists, A, I think Iran wants to punish them. And B, I think they want to destroy the once and for all. What they're doing is once and for all, they're destroying the aura of military power that Iran has. They're destroying some aura of invincibility once and for all. And also, what they're doing is they're inflicting real material damage. So you can have what would the word be? Rhetorical. You can have a narrative-based victory in that you destroy the narrative that Israel is some military superpower. Meanwhile, you have a kinetic victory because you physically destroy their capacity to wage war. So Iran knows Israel's a problem in this region, and Israel is a gigantic military and intelligence base. We're going to give them everything we got night and day. Additionally, I think what the Iranians are doing, and it's a brilliant strategy, just evaluating it, is they're targeting U.S. and Israeli high-ranking officials, military, intelligence, whatever the case may be. What is that? That's also demonstrating to the U.S. that you're not the only ones that can do that anymore. All this crap about we're going to target and drone kill people. Guess what? Now the shoe's on the other foot. So they're demonstrating to the U.S. in the future, you better damn well show some restraint. If you are a decision maker and you're like, ha, 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 we're going to go into country X and we're going to kill their decision makers, you'll think twice in the future because country X is going to come back and try to kill your decision makers. And that's why they're saying it. They're saying Trump better worry about getting eliminated. Trump's people better worry about getting eliminated. You notice you don't see anybody from the Trump administration saying, hey, we're going to make a jaunt over to Israel. We're for the Middle East. Hell no. What they're saying is, embassy person, everybody get out of the Middle East now. Decolonization is upon us, my friends. So that's part of what we're seeing here. Iran with a strategy. But here's my point. Let me get to my point. You haven't really seen the consummation, shall we say, of Iran's strategy. What is it? The apogee. You haven't seen the center of their strategy yet, because if your strategy is to exhaust your enemy, remember rope-a-dope? Muhammad Ali, what am I going to do? I have George Foreman, this big, powerful guy that I can't go toe-to-toe with. I can't do it. Can't do it. He's too big. He's too strong. So what am I going to do? I'm going to dance around. I'm going to wear him out. I'm going to exhaust my opponent. And once he's exhausted by the 7th round, oh, then he's in deep, serious trouble. I'm going to knock him out, right? We ain't got to the 7th round yet. My point being is the plan is for the Russians to exhaust NATO in Ukraine, right? Remember what was the infamous quote about how did I go broke? First slowly and then suddenly, right? I'm going to exhaust you, which means at some point we tip past the scale where you're no longer able to fight. And then I just knock you right out, right? So where Iran is right now is they're asking, what they're asking for seems insane. Oh my gosh, the U.S. can never give this. They're saying we want $500 billion. You're going to pay us back for everything you took from us. And you're getting the hell out of the Middle East. And you're doing this, and with a bunch of things that the U.S. can't possibly take till you're laying on the ground with your face smashed into the asphalt and blood running out of your nose and both eyes black and the guy still beating the hell out of you. Then what? At that point, some of those things that didn't look so good start to look like a reasonable option at that point. So what happens? Mark my word. Iran is holding off right now. They have came out and they caused the U.S. to use a lot of ordnance and a lot of defensive ordnance and everything. And they're hitting ships and they're hitting planes and they're weakening the U.S. and they're continuing to pummel Israel, right? And using defensive. So the U.S. is taking political, it's taking public relations, it's taking kinetic hits nonstop. Now, here's my point. What do you think they're going to do when the U.S. starts running out of both offensive and defensive capabilities? Already start running short on defensive capabilities. And it's going to get to a point here within weeks that the U.S. is naked when it comes to air defense. We ain't far from it now. Israel seems to be naked. But once your opponent gets naked, you could throw a rock at them. They don't have air defense. You don't need your best missiles. You know, what Iran said was, we're going to use our best, we're old stuff first, and then we're going to the new stuff. Well, that if I'm Iran, I'd PR. I'm going to use my new stuff first. I'm going to use the stuff that stretches you first. Why is that? Because think about this. Think about this strategy. This is what I'd be thinking. If I use my old stuff first and you use your air defense to shoot it down, then I lose my old stuff. It doesn't really have as much effective as I want. And then I come in with the new stuff and hit you, but you're not hit as hard. Think about this. If I use my new stuff first, remember, a lot of my old stuff, if I use that first, it gets shot down, but I'm just using that to attract your missiles so you can burn them up, and then I can come in with my new stuff. Let's go to another thought. If I come in with my new stuff first, it's hard for you to shoot that down. Hypersonic missiles, all kinds of stuff, overwhelmed with drones. So now you're firing a lot of defensive stuff, but I'm getting a lot more through, right? Okay. Now you run out of defensive capabilities. You're out of anti-aircraft missiles. You can't shoot anything down now. Now I come in with my old stuff. Why is that? Because it's all going to get through. If I use my old stuff first, you'd shoot a lot of it down, but some of it would get through. So my old stuff, let's say 30% of my old stuff gets through. I've wasted 70% of my old stuff. If I use my new stuff first, a high percentage of that gets through because it's new. But now I go to my old stock, 100% of it gets through. I can hit you with anything. I can use cannonballs now because you don't have a way to defend yourself. So if I'm Iran, I got a lot of my old stuff. Then I'm holding until you're naked. And then I'm just throwing a missile. I don't care how slow it is. You can't shoot it down. I can use a kite and fly it in with hot air balloons and drop. I can literally, use one of those bicycles where you pedal and it goes up in the air, and I can pedal over a U.S. base and throw a hand grenade by hand down. Why? Because you're out of defensive capabilities. Exhausting your enemy means you run them out of defensive capabilities and then you take them out. And we're talking about the success that Iran has now. But they have a broader strategy. It's obvious to me. And the strategy is, that's why the Trump people apparently keep calling. Hey, Iran, yeah, can you give us a break here, dude? Iran's like, yeah, we'll give you a break, all right. We're going to break everything you got. Hey, perhaps we can talk about a plan. Oh, we got a plan, and we're executing it. Have a nice day. They're calling Putin. Putin, can you get us out of this? And Putin's like, oh, you want me to do you a favor, huh? Interesting. Okay. No. I can't. Shut up. Goodbye. That's where everybody is. Oh, you threatened, and this is what the U.S. said recently. I love this. This is what Trump said. So the Trump, and he gave it up. He told on himself. Trump just is not a brilliant strategist by any stretch of the imagination. I don't know if you saw this. Trump was asked about. He was told the Europeans are upset. You got to love the European leaders, the stupidest people on earth. The European leaders are upset because you relaxed the oil sanctions on the Russians, and they don't want that to happen. Guess what Trump said? No. As soon as this problem is over, I'll relax the sanctions. So what do you think the Russians hear? Of course, as if the Russians didn't already know it. The only reason the U.S. relaxed oil sanctions on Russia is because they want the price of oil on the market to go down so that politically it doesn't hurt Trump much. Do you think the Russians don't know that? So the Russians are like, they're like, hey, we're relaxing sanctions. The Russians are like, fine. The Russians are selling plenty of oil. Everybody's screaming for oil. In fact, the Iranians are selling more oil now than they did before the conflict, and Trump won't do anything about it. You know why? Because he wants that oil on the market. Let's not forget that the Indians said that when the conflict started in 2022, the SMO started in 2022, Russia launched the SMO, that the Biden administration said publicly, India can't buy oil from Russia. Privately, they said to the Indians, keep buying it because we got to keep the price down, right? So, I mean, yes, Trump so-called relaxed the oil sanctions or whatever on Russia, but I think Russia is, and I'm really worried about that because let's face it, people are beating the path to their door right now. Oh, please sell me oil and gas. Please, all you got. All they have, they can sell, and that ain't going to stop. It's not going to stop anytime soon, for two reasons. And this is important. A dynamic that has changed, and I don't want to, but this is part of the conversation. So I'm going to go in different areas here and there. Part of the conversation that has changed. Remember, what do you want? You want a stable supply of energy, right? Okay. You can't get more stable than Russia. Russia's an extremely stable country. And let's face it, even during the Cold War, when Russia and NATO had thousands of nuclear weapons pointed at each other, Russia was still selling oil via the Siberian pipelines to the NATO countries, and they never stopped and it never interrupted. So they are a reliable partner, even if you're their enemy. If they make a contract with you, they keep the contract. So right now, you are country X, whatever country you are, and you're saying, holy mother of God, we're screwed. And the Persian Gulf is cut off. And that's not stability. And Russia, they constantly deliver what they say they're going to deliver. Okay, they ain't going to be cut off. I want to do business with Russia. Even after this is over, what has Iran done? Iran has exposed that basically they're the gatekeeper for all energy in the U.S. They're the gatekeeper for the world's for minimum the Western economies. They're the gatekeepers. They've exposed that. They can shut it anytime they want to, and you better kiss their behind and give them 3 hours to draw a crowd. Right? They've exposed that. So let's just say, for the sake of argument, this ends. The Straits of Hormuz is open again, and you're like, oh, thank you, Lord. Oh, we're getting oil and gas again through the Straits of Hormuz. Everybody's going to be fighting for it, number one. But number two, there's going to be things that are destroyed, that have to be fixed, that have to be turned back on. Okay. And in addition, your long-term planners are going to be meeting in your capital saying, hey, we need to talk to their prime minister. This could happen again. That's a volatile part of the world. We need to secure a stable supply of gas and oil. I know. How about Russia? Everybody in the world is going to call Vladimir Putin and say, man, what can we do? Now, what else is going to happen? China and Russia. Russia's got oil fields like the size of Europe that they haven't tapped into. And China and Russia can then say, as everybody else is going to call Russia, including the United States, we'd like to invest in developing some of these oil fields that you haven't opened up yet and searching for it. We want to invest. China's, what do you think the U.S. is going to do? Russia's going to do it with the U.S.? Hell no. So now Russia will become the premier supplier of gas and oil, not just for the duration of this conflict, but there we go. My phone wasn't charging. Not just for the duration of this conflict, but after the conflict, even more so because of their capacity to maintain a stable supply and because their history of being a stable partner. Look, they're at effectively at war with NATO, and they're still providing gas and oil to NATO that NATO is using to buy stuff to bomb them with. You can't get much more stable than that. When they put their signature on a contract, you can be sure that they are going to execute that contract, unlike some other countries. So now, if you are anyone in the world, you want a contract with Russia because you don't want to have to deal with the Straits of Hormuz. The Gulf countries, right? These Arab countries, they're going to have to deal with that because when this is over, yes, people are going to be screaming for oil, but people are going to be, but people are going to be trying to figure out how they can get out of it. I don't want in the future to be what's the word? To be tied to the Straits of Hormuz, that everything is about the Straits of Hormuz, that all of my power goes to the Straits of Hormuz. And if that happens, I'm done. They're going to be looking for other countries out that don't have to use the Straits of Hormuz. If you got oil and gas and you ain't in the Gulf, everybody's going to be screaming to you, please, can I get a contract for you to provide? Because I don't want to have to go through this again. So that's what's happening there. But as I said, what Iran is doing now, look, Iran can't negotiate now because you want to negotiate from a position of strength, and they want to be in the ultimate position of strength. They want the U.S. to run out of stuff. And I put it like this: if I'm Iran, I want you to run out of offensive, defensive weapons. Let's say 4, 5, 6 weeks out. 6 weeks out, you're in deep trouble. Everything I throw at you hits, and your economy is in collapse. Total collapse. The Western economy, total collapse. Everything is collapsing around your feet and you're screaming for mercy. All of the red lights on your dash are bright red. They're screaming the engine failure. And then you're going to call me and say, we got to make a deal. And I say, not just yet. Let me think about it. I'll call you in a week. And you're like, no, I don't have a week. Yeah, I know you don't. That's why I'm going to call you in a week. The answer is no. Then what? What is the U.S.? Now think about this. The U.S. says, we're going to use a nuclear weapon. Iran says, you can do that. We can't stop you from using a nuclear weapon. We never could. You know it and I know it. But let's define nuclear weapon. A weapon of mass destruction. If you hit us with a nuclear weapon, there will be mass destruction, right? Mass destruction all over the place. At which point, we will respond by hitting Israel's nuclear power plant with multiple warheads, hypersonic warheads, blasting it to shreds, and it will melt down, and Israel becomes Chernobyl. Goodbye, Israel. See you later. Nice to know you. Oh, by the way, if you do that, what do you think is going to happen to the Gulf infrastructure? All the oil infrastructure is gone, which means people should read books about 1929. That'll be the good times compared to what you got to deal with. That's it. Starvation, zombie apocalypse time. Most likely the guillotines will be coming out. If you're a member of the ruling elite, you're rich, you're Trump, you're Witkoff. Use that nuke. We're going to nuke everything that keeps your economy going, but we don't need nuclear weapons to do it, and you know it. At that point, what do you think is going to happen? All that money you got in the market, all this evaluation that you have of $1 trillion for NVIDIA and this and that, what do you think is going to happen? All of that valuation, it's gone. We will wipe your markets, and all your rich people that have all this stuff in the market, it's all gone. So all your rich people will become poor. You use a nuke on us, it'll be like this. You know, 2 guys are in a car accident. One of them, gets mangled and dies, and the other one gets mangled, but he's burnt and his legs are mangled off, and he's blind, and he's just in absolute hell, but he's still alive. There are those who would argue the guy that's dead is better off. Okay, so if we get nuked, okay, 1 million people dead or whatever, based on what you're going to get, death might be a welcome alternative to what's going to happen to the Western economy. So if you want to do that, It's mutually assured destruction. Only the mutually assured destruction is a different kind. It's not the kind that people do when you throw a nuke and they throw a nuke back and everybody goes up in a cloud of dust. Nope. It's the kind where you throw a nuke back and they pull a rug out from under your economy and you got to sit and wait in misery and say, what are we going to do in 60, in 80, in 120 days when we have to tell the American people there is no economy? And there ain't going to be none. You might want to plant some tomatoes. That's your best bet. People are eating pigeons. And they're going to be storming the halls. And they're going to be cutting your heads off. And oh, by the way, you'll be just as poor as they were ruling elite, because all of that imaginary money that you had, it's gone. So Iran's in a position where they can put they can take the U.S. past the point, right, of exhaustion, to the point of exhaustion where the U.S. and its allies can no longer effectively either defend or attack because they're out of everything. Then they can wait for the desperation and anxiety to build. I'm out of everything, and it's fill in the blank. April 15th, May 1st. May 1st, U.S. is out of everything. Okay, we got to talk now. What do you want? No, we just started ready to talk. I'm going to wait. You know what? Sure, we'll make a deal. We will talk with you in Oman, whatever the hell, right? Great. So let's do it tomorrow. We're really busy right now. Don't really have time. You know, it's summer. We got to fix up the yard and put down some flowers and a little bit of peat moss. Here's what we're going to do. It's May 1st. Yeah, May 15th. The meeting in Oman, May 15th. Be there or be square. Now, at that point, the U.S. and its allies say, no, my God, no. We got to talk now. We got to get this war over. And they're like, we'd like to, but, you know, my wife tells me I got to fix this flower bed. You know how women are. Pain in the ass. Can't help you. May 15th. See you then. So now you're in deep and serious trouble. So what does the U.S. say? Either do it or we'll nuke you. And they say, yeah, look, that option was always there. It didn't just arise. What do you think? We're stupid? But don't forget, you told us you were going to kill us. So what's the difference? If we lost the war, you told us you were going to kill us. You were going to take over. You were going to destroy us if you lost the war. And Donald Trump, you've come out and said we're genetically inferior. I saw what you did in Gaza. I know how you do things. You kill everybody. You do genocides. Based on what you saw in Gaza, I'm facing a genocide anyway. You've given me no option. So if you're going to use a nuke, if you're threatening a nuke, use it. But understanding what the consequences for you will be, go right ahead. Trust me, it ain't going to get you out of this mess. But we always knew that was a possibility, and we prepared for that possibility. Israel's done, you're done, whatever. It's up to you. See you on the 15th. Or if you use a nuke, then we won't have to have that discussion, will we? Toodles, that's the position they'll be in. And that's the position I'd have to use if I was them. As I always said, when you tell a man you're going to kill him, he's out of options. The thing about that to me demonstrates, now we're not out of weapons, but that demonstrates a loss. And this is important, I think. The U.S. started the conflict. The U.S. has no capacity to end the conflict. The U.S. is in a war. You know, this is not a war. You know why it's not a war? You know why they say it's not a war when they say it is a war? It's a war. We're going to win the war. It's not a war. Why is it not a war? Because if it is a war, you violated the Constitution. If it is a war, then you have started a war. There's a constitutional requirement that you go through Congress, and you did not do that, which means that you are a criminal in the United States. So you have to say it's not a war. Let me do this. So you've started a war. You called it, I don't even know what you call it. I don't know what you called it. But the thing about it is this: if you want a war to end and you don't have a capacity to end it, and you approach the adversary asking them to end the war, and they say no, there's two things obvious. Number one, you're losing. The other is you don't have a path to victory. You know, it's one thing to be losing a fight now, but I got a plan and I'm still in the fight. If I'm trying to get out of it, I don't have a path to victory. It's full spectrum domination. What's the term we use? Full spectrum dominance. How things going kinetically for the US? I don't even want to go on X or whatever today. I go, oh, by the way, I'm back on X. Look for the Garland Nixon. Everybody follow me. The THE, the Garland Nixon. I'm going to have to sue X. I have no choice. Because they stole my other account. At Garland Nixon is still sitting there with 100,000 viewers, 100,000 followers, and I'm still paying for it and I can't access it. So I had to open another one. And guess what? My other account's sitting there. So everybody goes to Garland Nixon. I'm screwed. Anyway, so the Garland Nixon, that's me on X. Please follow me. At any rate, and that is the US wants to end. Asking for an end can't get an end. That means we are losing now, and we don't have a capacity. We don't have any viable path to victory. And now it's just like, what are the U.S. going to do next? Are they going to do this? Are they going to send in troops? Are they? That means you lost. Everybody's asking. People are like, what are you going to do? What they're really saying is, you're kind of screwed. You need some kind of a magical way out, because what you're doing now ain't going to get you there. What could possibly? Nothing. There's no way out. When I talk to Mario, he's like, what about this? And what are they going to do? And I'm like, dude, people never want to acknowledge that there are times when there ain't an answer. When you are a victim of circumstance, when you are a leaf in the wind, you start a fight with the wrong guy, you don't have a way to stop it. No, people always, well, here's the path. Here's what they're going to do. Here's their plan. You ever watch Tremors? When they come up with this plan, the two guys are getting chased by the monsters. They come up with a plan and they execute their plan and it doesn't work. And the guy says, what's the plan? And the other guy says, run. They take off running. He looks at him. He says, running ain't a plan. Running is what you do when a plan don't work. That's where we are. What we're doing, sending in 3,000 Marines ain't a plan. Sending in 3,000 Marines is what you do when your plan has failed. That's the key. What we're doing now are not part of a plan. These tactics are not part of a strategy. These tactics are what you do when your strategy has collapsed. When your plan has collapsed, you start doing, you know what you start saying? Well, let's, I don't know. What do you think? I don't want to do this in the first place. I don't know. How about you? We could pray. Literally. Trump brought a bunch of people in him. That's when you know you're screwed. You know what that's do when you're in a plane and it's like, quick, what do we do? Pray. Come on. That's your only hope. Literally, Trump brought a bunch of people in his office to circle around him. I don't blame him. I ain't mad. People are like, oh, look at this. I'm like, well, let's look at his circumstances. What were his options? Hey, generals, how things going? I'm getting our ass kicked. Oh, yikes. Let me call the Air Force commander. What's going on? They're shooting down our planes, but we got to say that they just dropped out of the sky. Fair enough. Let me call the Navy. What's that in the Navy? Would you believe a laundry room fire? No, I think it's a missile. Well, that's the best I can do. Oh, crap. Everything's failed. You have no plan. You have no strategy. And what you're doing now are things that you do out of desperation when your strategies and your plans have gone the way of the dodo bird, my friend. That's where we are. Now, not only are you in a situation where you don't have any ability to end the conflict, whether it ends or not, but as it goes on, it is eroding the international narrative of U.S. unipolar power. How are you going to convince people around the world that you're the most powerful military and economic entity that has ever existed when somebody has you on the ground by the collar, beating your stinking face in? Oh, by the way, and you're horrified because your economy is going to collapse. So Iran is mercilessly and brutally throttling you about the face and neck. At the same time, they're stealing your wallet. They're closing your bank accounts. They got your PIN number. They have your PIN number. What is the PIN number? 1, 2, 3, 4. Got it. Thank you. That's what they're doing. They're beating you and they're emptying your bank accounts at the same time permanently. That ain't a win, my friends. That's not a win. And so now the U.S. is in a situation where The biggest loss, there's many of them, is going to be the loss of credibility, the loss of narrative. Now nobody will bargain with you because you've been perfidious, right? You've said, hey, come over here, come close to me, so we can negotiate. And then somebody came close and you bopped them in the head because they were close enough. What you've done is perfidy, right? It's the equivalent in war of somebody holding up a white flag and saying, we want to talk to you. And when the enemy comes over because they feel that using the white flag, they'll be safe. And you use the white flag to draw them out in the open and you hit them with machine gun fire. That's perfidy, right? That's all. That's what Trump has done over and over. That's what the U.S. empire has done over and over. Draw somebody out using under the guise of negotiation to get them to drop their guard and then attack them. So now, how are you going to negotiate your way out of this? Because nobody will negotiate with you. You know what they will do? The only thing that people will do with America is what my dear old longshoreman dad would call a money in hand deal. You make a deal. You shake hands, and then you say to the person, I'll give you $100 if you, whatever, cut my grass. Okay. When you going to cut it? I can cut it today. Great. Shake hands. I'll be needing the money up front. Oh, I'll pay it as soon as you get up. No. It's not a matter of trust. It's how I do business. I'll be needing $100 up front. You give me the $100. I cut the grass. Upon delivery in a contract, right? That $100 is consideration. In consideration of you putting $100 in my hand, I will execute my part of the contract, which is I'll cut your grass. Now there's a little problem with trust here, but we can fix it. Give me the $100 or don't call me. Get somebody else that trusts you to cut your grass. That's where the U.S. is. Nobody trusts them. So how are they even going to get a deal? The only deal the U.S. can get is a money in hand deal. What Iran's going to say, you have to drop all the sanctions. And the U.S. is going to say, we can't drop the sanctions. And they're going to say, we know you can't. But we ain't going to stop the war until you drop the sanctions. We're not going to open the Straits of Hormuz. If the U.S. says, okay, then, look, here's what we're going to do. We're going to stop firing and go home. We're going to take all of our ships. We're going to take everything. We're going to go home. The Iranians will say, yeah, that's fine too, but we still ain't opening the Straits of Hormuz till you give us what we want. Well, we left. Yeah, I know. But it ain't over until I say it's over. And I didn't say it's over. You didn't say, Mother, may I? No. That's what Iran will say. Then what? You go home and you pray. Oh, please, Lord, come to us today and open the Straits of Hormuz. Sorry, you ain't getting that kind of blessing, my friends. You can't end this. And at the end, if you walk away having taken a beating, you'll have gone home taking a beating, which means nobody in the world will ever be intimidated. If you say to a country, you better do this, they're going to be, yeah, right. Hey, don't make me call Iran. No, don't make me call Iran. I call Iran and you'll shut up. We've been humiliated. And at the end of this conflict, even now, not forget the end of this conflict, we're showing desperation, we're showing fear, we're showing horror, we're showing incompetence, we're showing all of the things that we claim that we don't have. Guess what? I will go back to this. Before this conflict started, or those of you who watch my channel know, one of the things that I said was, if the U.S. attacks Iran, that's it for the U.S. empire. That was my prediction. That's it for the U.S. empire. It's game, it's set, it's match. The empire, is done. It's finished. There's no way out of this. And its allies. And you know what? Don't forget this. There ain't no honor amongst thieves. The so-called allies of the United States will abandon it. Look, the Europeans, the other part of it is this, and I'll say this before I go. This will strike Europe before it strikes us, and it'll strike it 100 times harder. Let's not forget, the United States does create its own energy, right? The United States won't feel the energy crunch as bad as other countries, but because we create our own energy, we pump our own oil, we create our own gas, right? Now, the Europeans are saying to the U.S., we'll buy all this LNG at you at a super high price. When the United States gets short of LNG, they'll say, sorry, we can't sell you any. We're going to keep it for ourselves. You know, and I know good and well, the U.S. is going to say, we're going to keep our oil and gas for ourselves. We're going to take it off the market and keep it ourselves. Politically, they have no choice. Europe is going to go within a few weeks. Europe is toast. And the Russians, I suspect, will yank the rug out from under them and say, we're not selling you gas and oil anymore. And here's my prediction. When Europe gets in dire straits, remember, my belief is you negotiate with your opponent when they're laying on the ground and you got your foot on their neck. That's when it's time to negotiation. You watch my prediction here. And that is when the Europeans find themselves out of gas, out of oil, and out of time, and they are in the most desperate situation that they could ever imagine, the Russians will then say, guess what? We're cutting off your gas and oil. That little bit of gas and oil that we've been selling you, yeah, we're cutting off that too. So when they find the European leaders at their lowest possible point, they'll push them a little bit lower. And the Europeans will say, oh my God, Russia, please don't do that. And Russia will say, you know, now that you mention it, I think we can work out a deal. Number one, you will drop all sanctions. And watch what Russia's going to say. They're going to say what Iran said. Number one, you will drop all sanctions against us permanently. And it will be enshrined in the whatever constitution of the European Union. Everybody drops all sanctions forever. Number two, well, you know what Iran said? We want to be reimbursed for all of our problems. You will return the money that you took from us, from our sovereign wealth fund, every dime of it. And number three, you will reimburse us for the struggle, for the things that we have lost, which was kind of hard for Russia because they actually made money from the sanctions. So maybe we'll throw that one out. But you get my point. When they get the Europeans in a situation where the Europeans are screwed, blued, and tattooed, the Russians will come in and say, we want the same thing as the Iranians want. You got to drop all sanctions for starters. Everything. The rules that are in the Baltics that say Russian-speaking people can't do this and that, you will drop everything. And you will drop to your knees and you will kiss the ring of Vladimir Putin. No, but you get my picture. Why wouldn't they? That's what I do. And I'm a nice guy. I'm a really nice person until you push me in a corner. That's everybody. I'm an easygoing guy. I don't want any trouble until you push me in the corner. And then I'm dealing with desperation and we're going to have a problem, right? Is there anything else I had said I needed? I think that's it. I think that's all I need to talk about. So let me just say this to everybody. Number one, thanks people for Patreon. If you can afford to be a Patreon contributor, buy me a coffee, PayPal. Also buy me a coffee. You can do just like Patreon where you can do like, it just says like buy Garland a coffee. How much is like $5 or something? Yeah, you can do, how many do you want? Or you can do a monthly, certainly. So thanks everyone. And of course, there's my PO box for people who want to snail mail, and it doesn't matter. I mean, certainly people snail mail contributions. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. But I like hearing from people. So people send me cards. Hey, Garland, thanks. I think you're doing a great job. Maybe you could do a show about this, recommendations. Oh, here's a book you need to read. Here's my manifesto. So people email me, snail mail me all kind of stuff, and I read it. And, you know, I appreciate it. And sometimes I mention it on the air. So thanks everyone. People have sent some donations for my trip to Russia, which is the 20th, that I'm going with Scott Ritter to Russia for 10 days. And certainly appreciate support there. So thanks a lot, everybody. Share this on all your social media platform. And of course, remember the Garland Nixon on Twitter or X or whatever the hell it is. And now I got to start my struggle with X, because they got my old account. And there are two accounts, think about this, that say Garland Nixon, and I'm paying for both of them, and I can only access one. So now I got no choice. I've been putting it off, but I got to sue Twitter now. All right, thanks a lot, everybody. I appreciate it. Share this on all your social media platforms. Please follow me on Twitter. I'm out.